and he's the parent of three, and he was the chief counsel to the FCC when Reed Hundt was the chairman of the FCC during the first term of the Clinton administration. I think you'll see a few things from the FCC. First, there's going to be a major emphasis on broadband, putting broadband in every school and every rural area in the United States. Part of the stimulus package is, in fact, to wire every school and all broadband and all rural areas in the United States. And there is a broadband initiative coming out of the FCC that Mr. Janikowski, once he is confirmed, because he's been nominated, but he is still subject to confirmation by the Senate, I think will oversee. I think that a big element of that will be a concept of education in the context of our talk, education and digital literacy, requiring the industry to take a more proactive stance around issues related to digital education and literacy, but also hopefully investing more government resources in that, and perhaps using the FCC as the principal regulatory body, but also one to push that forward. I think the second thing you will see is probably a slightly more involved hand in terms of some of the consolidation of media enterprises, but not dramatically different, say, from previous eras. But there have been a lot of issues in front of the Federal Communications Commission over the last decade or so that are really antitrust issues and really go to the consolidation of media power in a certain number of hands. I think that the FCC will be involved in that. But I think that the biggest thing is that we will see the new digital age, which my remarks were in reference to, as really at the forefront of this. Now, President Obama and Michelle Obama, fortunately for us, in my opinion, have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. And so they are living the reality that I am living as a parent and that millions of other parents out there are living. And they are users of common sense already. So I believe that you will see from the White House as well as the FCC a recognition that you can't look at issues about education or health care in the United States or anything that affects kids without understanding the importance of media. For example, President Obama says all the time, if you listen to his speeches, parents need to tell the kid to turn off the TV, turn off the video game machine, and read to their kids. So I think you will see that from the FCC in a regulatory and bully pulpit context, but also from the president. I think Congress will go along with that. I think you're going to see a major new emphasis because of the stimulus package on education reform, and hopefully education reform today will include media education reform as part of it, and in a sense a collaboration across different government institutions, because I don't think you can think of a 21st century classroom that these young people, for example, are sitting in without thinking about the media and technology and broadband aspects. And I think that will be a role for the FCC to coordinate with other players at the federal and state government level. I hope you will see that here in Cleveland and in the state of Ohio as well.
Mr. Steyer, thank you for such an informative program that should be of interest to all ages in this audience today. I have two questions.
Sure.
Number one, how did you get all this fog from San Francisco to here today? Number two, you gave some statistics on television sets being in the rooms of children. Can you give us some statistics on computers in the bedrooms and the effects that might have?
Yeah. I think the answer to your first question is it must be this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction weekend that the fog came in with, but I don't want to speculate as to how that exactly occurred. But I don't believe I'm responsible for the weather in Cleveland. I don't know, but probably something on the internet. It probably had something to do with the internet. The statistics on computer use in the bedroom are nearing the 40% mark. And I think one of the challenges, one of the messages that I would give to parents and grandparents and actually teachers and educators and everyone out, and young people themselves out there, is that there's a maxim in the world of real estate, which is location, location, location. And I would tell you, you ought to remember that when you think about where you put media devices. I personally don't believe that you guys sitting at the table there should have a TV set of your own in your bedroom. And I know this is unlikely, but if you do, I'd go home and tell your parents tonight, do you think they should remove the TV set from your bedroom? But I will tell you this, do you guys have laptops? You have laptops? Do you use the laptop in your bedroom with internet access? So here's my thing on that, because remember, I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So you think about that 16-year-old and the 14-year-old, and they both have laptops with internet access. I want to know, I don't want to sit over their shoulder and watch them every second, but I want to know where they're surfing, and I want to have the right as a parent to check out once from time to time what they're doing on the internet, because it's this vast treasure trove of information. So in our house, we ask that you use your computer with internet access, not in your bedroom. Or, and this is one I'm sure you'll try out in your own homes, you young people here, if you're allowed to use it in your bedroom, keep the door open and make sure that it's something that your parents have access to. Because there are things that go on in that world that a 14 or 15-year-old doesn't necessarily always have the judgment to make correct decisions about. And so the numbers are going up. Kids spend more and more time, to your question, on computers in their bedrooms, but they're also now using cell phones. And that is the one thing that I would remind you, even in the context of that question, that this, which is an Apple iPhone, is really a mini computer. And yeah, I can download on this video, music, almost anything. And a year or two from now, these kind of enabled phones will be the computers of the future, not just here in the United States, but all across the world. So we're going to have rules about cell phones in bedrooms just as much as we have them about TV sets and computers.
What's the impact of this immersion in media and digital activity on basic reading literacy for young people? Is it good, bad, indifferent? And if it's bad or indifferent, what can we do about it?
I think that you can't, first of all, there's a very good question. There's very little research to date and on the impact of the new digital literacy and the digital media on reading. But as an educator myself and as a teacher and a parent, let me suggest what I think you see. First of all, I think we see the immersion in media as leading to shorter attention spans in kids. And I think you see much shorter attention spans even in the early brain development years, in the 0 to 5 age range, when increasing numbers of kids are being clunked in front of some sort of screen, not just a TV and video screen, but now a computer. So I think it's leading to shorter attention span. I think you're now seeing, another thing is that in a text message context and in a Facebook message context, Facebooking or MySpace context, kids send short bits of information, very quick bits of information. I believe that affects their writing and their English and their reading. Very short. I notice in my students at Stanford, for example, that they don't write exactly the same way. And I will occasionally get papers that have internet slang that they forgot to edit out because they are so used to doing shorthand messages to each other. So I believe that it is having a significant effect on the way people write and read. And I think that with the proliferation of e-books, for Kindles, for example, and other forms of e-books, that we're seeing a transformation in this area. To me, this is an area we should make enormous investment in terms of research from an educational standpoint and a pedagogical standpoint. Because the last point I'd make about this from an educational standpoint is this. Kids today, because of this new digital reality, accumulate massive amounts of bits of information. In very short bites of information. It's very different than sitting and reading a book or reading a novel from cover to cover and in the classic form of reading that we're accustomed to. It's short bits of information, whether it's interpersonal communication or bits and facts about this or that. And they're very, very facile with that kind of research. But there's a big difference between information and knowledge.